Vacate immediately. That's what the paper said, taped to our door like a scarlet letter, the red initials at the bottom swinging in the breeze as if they were proud of themselves. Grant Tisdale, HOA president, smiling that little half-smile on my porch like he owned the deed, like this was just another box to check. I didn't even need to finish reading, because the second I saw his name I knew it wasn't about rules, it was about power. He tried to make it sound polite. You've had months to comply. Marcus, Melissa's non-compliance leaves us no choice. But his eyes were hungry. You know what I mean, like he'd already pictured our furniture on the curb. I let him run his script, and then I told him he was standing 2 feet into Ridgemont Township, that the line he thought he owned stopped at the cast iron marker sunk in our lawn, the one Melissa's father used to polish on Sunday evenings. I helped design those jurisdictional overlays years ago. This was my language, my math, and watching Grant's smirk stutter for a heartbeat felt like hearing a door lock click from the inside. Let me back up a sec. I'm Marcus Bell, a civil engineer who spends his days arguing with distances and maps. And this house, this old brick place with the groaning porch swing and the blue shutters faded by actual sun, that's my wife's inheritance, her father's fingerprint still. In the mortar, our wedding vows said under the oak tree Grant keeps threatening to shape for visibility. His son, Ethan, tried to buy the place 3 months after the funeral, cash offer. No inspection, as if grief made the walls soft. And when Melissa said no, the letter started. Unauthorized vehicle, hedge height, guest occupancy, the fines climbing like ivy that strangled. Not decorated. It wasn't enforcement, it was leverage. Our home is the last quiet corner on a street that reads like a catalog spread. Vinyl fences, 1 species of tree per lot, manufactured. Symmetry that fools the eye for a second and then makes it tired, and we didn't match. We were memory and brick dust, and a marker that says where Oakwood ends and Ridgemont begins. And Grant hates boundaries he didn't draw. The HOA app loved us, though. Violation snapshots, escalating penalties, final notice issued, boxes filled like someone was playing bingo with our life. The public board archive read like propaganda. Board consensus, ongoing noncompliance. No minutes, no votes, just declarations that sounded official because nobody asked to see the receipts. In the neighborhood group chat, the polite crowd murmured the same usual things. So unfortunate. Hope they resolve it soon. And tucked in there, like a thorn in a bouquet, the little nudges. Maybe if she paid. Maybe if they fixed the porch. Maybe if they stopped embarrassing the street. Yeah, that happened. Saturday I parked near the clubhouse, because the blinds were always shut, but the walls weren't great. Blueprints tell on people, and I watched the silhouettes move while the portal on my phone updated in real time. Delinquency processing scheduled. Board escalation vote. Authorized. Melissa texted that our gate code had been cut again, which made me laugh for exactly 1 second because, as far as their registry was concerned, I didn't even exist. That's the part that always stung more than the money, the erasing. I showed up at the next meeting anyway and sat in the back. No seat for me. Sure, but nobody had the spine to ask me to leave. When Grant began his routine maintenance monologue, I asked the only question that mattered. Are you claiming jurisdiction over our parcel? And when he tried to bury me in amended charter fluff, I laid out the simple math. Our block, 217A, was never absorbed during the Oakwood, Ridgemont redistricting 26 years back. The marker isn't ornamental, it's a boundary. A woman 3 seats. Down from him went still when I said it, like someone had tugged a wire too tight inside her. That was Amy Rohr, a board member who never quite looked me in the eye and yet looked like she wanted to. Here's the twist. After the meeting, she didn't argue, didn't even make it a conversation. She just showed up at our door after dark with a folder hugged to her ribs, hair undone, fear running circles behind her glasses. These are the real minutes, she said, not the sanitized ones. In the margins, votes, objections, the exact sentence that mattered, President Tisdale acknowledges jurisdictional discrepancy, but insists on proceeding for consistency. Translation, he knew. He knew and pushed anyway. That's when the fight stopped being about us and started being about the neighborhood. I rolled maps across our dining table and built a binder the way I build a culvert schedule. Layers, cross-sections, citations that stack so neatly even liars can't find air between them. I I pulled the original township overlays, the annexation receipts that never got filed on the Ridgemont side, the HOA charter amendments Grant had cut and pasted from other districts. Like a freshman cheating on a midterm, and I drew the line, the actual line, that runs exactly to the center of the cast iron marker and nowhere past it. Melissa set coffee beside the binder and didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Her father's pencil sketches from the 90s lay open beside my laptop. Boundary confirmed 1996, never filed. And that note broke my heart and fixed my spine at the same time. I walked our block with letters for the 5 households stuck in the same jurisdictional blind spot as us. No rants, just the case number for a boundary clarification I filed with the county before lunch, and the simple explanation: the HOA has assumed authority over property it doesn't govern. Harold, the neighbor who'd watched from behind politeness for months, invited me into his garage, set lemonade on the workbench, and stared at the lines on my map like they were roads back to a place he meant to remember. His grandfather helped pour our marker, he said. If this holds, he added, tapping the steel-edged packet against his palm. I'd like to see the look on Grant's face when he finds out I was never his to find. County zoning didn't give me confetti. They gave me something better, a site visit scheduled, then a man named Frank Holman who showed up with a clipboard and the patience of a carpenter. We walked the boundary. He knelt to trace the marker's rust with a thumb and said there'd been a case like it a decade back. The court called them historical boundary fixtures. He measured, checked his GIS, and said the sentence that moves mountains without raising its voice: you're outside their authority. Procedural, not dramatic, which is exactly why it's solid. Grant tried to outrun the clock, deleted violations from the portal overnight, waved his hands about historically accepted interpretation, and called it misinformation when folks started asking whether $3,000 in fines buys anything if the person billing you never had the right to hold the pen. Amy stood up in the middle of his speech and said in a voice that made the room lean forward, "You told us certification didn't matter, presence within the gates was enough, and I have the minutes." She wasn't hiding anymore. Something in the room sighed, like a tired roof giving under snow. And then people started asking the real questions. Are our fines enforceable? Do we get refunds? Can we vote them out? I put the maps on the projector, the 1996 omission, the parcel overlays, the asterisk next to our lot on their own portal, and the list of 5 adjacent homes they'd restricted without a single legal nail to hold up those restrictions. And Harold spoke from the back. Without moving, he revoked my guest code. Amy followed the law all the way to its name, knowingly enforcing non-jurisdictional governance, and said the part that turns a boardroom into a record. I've preserved everything. Grant snapped, then sputtered, then tried to stall behind the word process, but you can't hide behind process when you skipped it. The vote of no confidence took 3 minutes. He left with a folder that had lost its gravity. Outside, the air felt hollow, like the quiet you hear when a structure is about to fall and is deciding which way. I slept for the first time in weeks and woke to rain that didn't feel like a bad omen, just a rinse cycle. The county hosted a public review at the library. Glass walls, microphones, nowhere for anyone to pretend they weren't looking, and Holman laid it out like an anatomy lesson. Charter, maps, the annexation that never happened, and then a slide of our marker like a family portrait. He called it what it is. Under code, a jurisdictional indicator, and he confirmed on the record that 6 parcels, ours included, sit outside the Maple Oak Reserve HOA. Amy followed with what the board should have done months ago: withdrawal of enforcement, refunds under review, and a neighbor near the front asked through grit teeth if they had been paying into a fiction. Yes, Amy said, and we're auditing. Grant showed up halfway through without his armor, and for once he didn't try to grab the microphone, because there's a special kind of silence people keep for men who built their power on a story, and just learned the ending isn't theirs to write. He left in the rain. He didn't look back. A week later, official letters landed in 6 mailboxes. No fines, no liens, no jurisdiction, and Melissa folded ours and slid it into her father's toolbox, not to wave around, but to rest. Grant resigned for personal reasons. The board elected Amy interim president, and the charter is being rewritten with oversight and timestamps and actual maps checked by actual people. The 5 other households on our street filed to disassociate. The HOA's shadow shrank to the size it always should have been. We didn't move an inch. The swing still creaks, the oak still keeps its leaves longer than the others, and the marker, that stubborn piece of cast iron my neighbor's grandfather set, with a borrowed crane, wears a string of tulips at its base now. Melissa's idea. Harold brought us an old black and white photo he found. Two men standing by the marker, hands dirty, shoulders straight, his grandfather and Melissa's father, and we framed it over the table where I built the binder that broke the spell. Not a trophy, just proof that history has weight. And sometimes it pushes back. People wave longer now, not everyone, not always, but there's less pretending not to see. They remember the time someone taped "Vacate" immediately to a door and someone else refused to confuse confidence with authority. The time a man who wasn't on the registry spoke anyway, and the room realized a line properly drawn doesn't need a fence to defend it. It needs a person willing to stand on it. And here's your open question. What do we owe each other when the story we're told about community is really just control with better landscaping? When consistency is the excuse for pretending a boundary isn't there? Are we safer inside the gates, or just quieter? If you've got a story about power dressed up as policy, drop it below. What would you have done? Where do you draw your line? And if you believe neighbors can be better than their boards, share this with someone who needs the map. You know what I mean?